I'm Julie Bulitt. I've been a family therapist for over 30 years.
I'm David Bulitt. I've been a divorce and family lawyer for more than 35 years.
Together, we have been married for more than 37 years.
In our professional practices, the two of us have been witnesses to individuals and families struggling with life's most difficult challenges. In this podcast, we will talk about the conversations we have had,
The conversations we should have had,
and those that every relationship needs to have in order to find success, happiness, and fulfillment.
This is Conversations for Couples,
The podcast. Welcome back to Conversations for Couples, the podcast. Welcome, Julie Bulitt.
Welcome, David Bulitt.
Well, this is really an episode that is so far up your alley that I'm going to sort of ask the questions I think people want to know the answers to, and then sort of sit back and let you answer them, right? So we're talking about attention deficit hyperactivity, ADHD, but in adults, in a relationship. Can a relationship survive if one of the partners has ADHD? That's what we want to get to, but we're going to build our way there, okay? So first, and you've been working with people that have this, what do we call it?
They call it a disorder.
A disorder.
Sometimes I call it a superpower.
Superpower? Okay, well, first of all, I want to ask you about that, but first of all, let's talk about what is it? What is it?
So ADHD is basically an attentional disorder. Sometimes there's hyperactivity involved and sometimes there's not. And it's a disorder that affects the executive functioning of a person, which if you think of an executive functioning, it is sort of like the orchestra band leader that tells everybody what they should be doing when they should be doing it. So the executive functioning of a person is like part of their frontal lobe, and it tells people what they should be doing, when they should be doing it, how they should be doing it, and it's like a task master, if you will. And
give us a simple sort of example when you say executive function. Just give us something in a day-to-day life of someone.
I have an 8:00 doctor's appointment, and if you have poor executive functioning, you may not be able to figure out when you should be getting up in the morning, how long you have to get dressed, and when you should leave. So that's a great example. A lot of people that have ADHD are late with, getting places, or have difficulties completing tasks, or think that they have more time than they do. Okay. So oftentimes time management, prioritization is an issue. Lots and lots of things, can be affected by poor executive functioning.
Now mostly we hear about it in kids, right? I mean, in my world, in the divorce lawyer world, there's always often are families with kids who have attentional issues, executive functioning issues. But the fact is that it's not just kids.
No, lots and lots of adults have ADHD. And in my generation, mostly it was boys that were very hyperactive were the ones that were diagnosed with ADHD, because they were like jumping off desks, and they were, like known to be a little bit of troublemakers or having trouble sitting still. Girls were very often, and still are, underdiagnosed in a lot of ways because they may not be hyper. They also may have better social skills and be able to compensate better.
And when we were, just to dive back for a second, when we were growing up, when I was growing up in the 70s, before it became, the diagnosis became more understood, people, if I had a kid who was standing on a desk, and all of us who grew up in the 70s, there was some kid in your class who stood on a desk, who did stuff, who was constantly disruptive. We just thought they were jerks. They were an asshole, right? But when in fact, they might have had
ADHD. Yes, right. Exactly. So we know a lot more about it, and people will ask oftentimes, aren't we just over diagnosing? Aren't we just saying everybody has it? But a lot of disorders, ADHD included, and autism spectrum disorder, it really is that we're beginning to understand and see sort of the little pieces that we may not have understood before. So if it wasn't a glaring person jumping off of a desk, then we didn't know it was ADHD. And now we know that somebody that zones out or somebody that has just issues with staying on task can have ADHD.
Does someone always have to have a cause? I mean, is there always got to be some cause, some diagnosis if someone, acts in a certain way? Can it just be that they're just, unpleasant characters?
Well, I'm sure there are unpleasant characters, but we're talking about ADHD.
Okay.
And so anyway, what we're really diving into today is how does ADHD play in relationships?
Right. So before we get to the relationship, tell me as an adult, what do you see?
Mm-hmm.
What are frequent symptoms, things that you observe in adults who have this disorder?
So again, time management is an issue. Finishing tasks can be an issue. Working memory, remembering that we needed milk or diapers, or remembering to pay the bills, those kinds of things. And those things impact the relationship a lot.
Disorganization, we're talking
Disorganization,
about?
yeah. Also tuning out and zoning out. So if someone has ADHD and you want to have a conversation with them and then they're like thinking about the next thing and they're not paying attention to you or not listening, that can seem rude, but it also is a symptom of ADHD.
So you said time management, which I guess also turns into whether someone is reliable, right?
Absolutely. If they say they'll be home at 6 and they're still at the office working or out playing golf then ADHD can be an issue in a relationship.
And all of those symptoms can have an adverse effect on a relationship.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Right. So we're together, and whether I've been diagnosed or I haven't been diagnosed, let's say I haven't been. Right. Because a lot of adults aren't.
Correct.
Right. A lot of us, go through life and don't get diagnosed because it wasn't around when we were younger.
Correct.
At least this generation. And so, I was supposed to go to the grocery store. I didn't make it. I was supposed to pick up our daughter at preschool at 3:00. I didn't show up there till 4:00. You got a call that we get charged $50 more because it was an hour late. It's the third time in a month. And if it happens again, then little Joni can't go to the preschool.
Yeah. Right? And I'm out $50 because you lost track of time. And I'm not happy about that.
That's a hypothetical. Right?
Yeah. Sorry. I was getting worked up there. I was thinking about the $50 each time. Yeah.
All right. So reliability is a problem, right? Paying attention. So if we're talking and I'm like, I'm looking at the TV or
onto something
else where you're having a discussion, expect me to pay attention to it. Or what about money? Can it affect people's finances?
Absolutely. One of the characteristics that can happen is impulse control, and spending is an issue with people sometimes that have ADHD is they, see something and they want to get it right away, or they don't really think they sign up for things. I mean, what were those things that people used to get, those vacations? The timeshares.
Oh yeah.
The timeshares.
People still get some.
So, they hear a great spiel or a product or a timeshare and then they want to get it. And sometimes they're impulsive, which can also be kind of fun in some ways, but impulsivity and not thinking through consequences, it really does affect relationships a lot.
So we'll talk a little bit about a couple that we interviewed for our second book, Secrets of Strong Couples, where the husband in that relationship had attentional issues.
Yes.
And he didn't really realize that there was any problem, but his wife felt like she was raising two kids. She had a 5 or 6 year old. I can't remember if it was a boy or girl. And she also had this husband who she had to clean up after, who she had to just physically
remind things. Yes.
Bouncing checks and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So that's an issue in a lot of relationships where one partner has ADHD is the other partner really has to be the executive functioning for both people. And that doesn't feel good to either partner. It feels really crappy to be the one that's holding up the whole structure of the household, if you will. And it also feels bad as the partner that, feels belittled or feels like they're not doing a good job if they're not able to do things without being reminded. So it can kind of work both ways, but it's definitely an issue for relationships and couples. And this woman in the book that we interviewed, talked about that piece and talked about how it wasn't sexy. She
Right.
didn't feel as attracted to her husband
Right.
because she was constantly having to sort of mother him, if you will.
Yeah, that became a big problem for them, and he didn't understand.
Yeah.
He really didn't get it, and it took. We're going to talk about what people can do if they
Yes,
find themselves
absolutely.
in this circumstance in a minute. But he just didn't understand, couldn't put his hands around it.
Yeah.
Why she didn't feel the way she felt about him before.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you keep on adding things on, like kids and bills
Sure.
and household things and more tasks, sometimes the ADHD really shows up even more. So you might, have been single and been fine and kind of gotten through things as an ADHDer. And then when you get married and you add on things, it can be more difficult.
All right. So you made a mention that it could also be a superpower.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, ADHD people are usually very creative and very fun people to be around. So that is awesome. And
why are they fun? I mean, what's fun about it?
Well, because their brain works in a different way and it can think of like outside the box things. And it also is constantly looking for stimulation and fun. So if you think of like the ADHD brain is constantly looking for the shiniest thing in the room. It's attracted to the shiniest thing in the room. So that kind of personality would be kind of a fun personality to be around. You're not going to be bored. You're not, you're going to be doing things. You're going to be looking for fun and activities, adventures, those kinds of things.
It sounds fun dating. It doesn't sound nearly as much fun if we're in a committed relationship with jobs and kids.
Well, but it could be fun in the bedroom if I'm creative and impulsive and those kinds of things. So think about that.
I will. I'm going to give it some thought, but not at the moment. So let's assume that you have a couple, right, and one of the partners, and since more often than not, it's the male, I guess.
No, not necessarily.
Okay, because you said women are not diagnosed.
Women generally have an attentive type, so they'll show up as sort of like airheaded or dizzy or, just like zoned out kind of thing. And men are generally like the more hyperactive type. So it kind of shows up differently, but I don't think it's fair.
Okay. So that shows my ignorance, which is why you're here.
There we go.
To point that out wherever I fall into. But let's talk about that couple, whichever it is.
So in the couple that we interviewed,
one partner, male, female, doesn't make any difference. Has potential issues. It's causing problems in the relationship. We met and you talked about some of them. What kind of strategies? What can people do? I mean, most people don't just want to say, I'm out, I want to be done.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully they don't show up in your office and say, my partner has ADHD, I'm out of here.
Well, hopefully not. Or hopefully so if we need to pay the mortgage that much.
Yeah.
But so what can you tell that this couple's, let's say this couple's sitting in your office and here's the issue. We've talked about it. I, spouse one, am tired of being his parent, right? A partner one, I'm tired of being his parent. I'm tired of cleaning up, not just physically cleaning up his messes, but all the other stuff that he does, bounces checks, doesn't pay bills, doesn't get the trash out, doesn't wash the dishes, doesn't pick the kids up. What? And then the other partner saying, well, I'm doing the best I can. I mean, I'm doing all I can do. Why are you so mad at me all the time, right? Isn't that really... So what do you tell those folks?
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, I think there needs to be education for both people. So for the person that has ADHD, they need to understand and take ownership for how their brain works.
Okay.
And I think that their partner also needs to understand that this is not malicious. This is not, purposeful. And doing some education, some reading, excuse me, around ADHD so people can understand is step one. Like that's primary. It just as I work with parents, that have kids that have ADHD, they're, sort of like a psychoeducational approach where you're helping people understand what this disorder is, what it looks like. And that sort of softens, the response. If you understand something, then you take it less personally, right?
But practically the problems are still there, whether you understand it or not. So what can we do? Okay, I understand it.
Yes.
I get it. I'm not as angry at you anymore.
Okay.
I'm not as frustrated, but I am still kind of irritated. I am still kind of frustrated, and the behavior continues.
Mm-hmm.
So what can a couple do together to try to improve that circumstance, knowing that one of the two partners has this disorder?
Yeah. So I think that I always say that structure is someone that has ADHD's best friend and worst enemy. Okay.
Most, sure, I get it. But
most ADHD people do not want structure, do not like structure, but they need structure. Okay. So embracing and understanding that ADHD people really do need structure, because the more structured the more structure they have, the easier it is to become, sort of habit forming. They just do it. They don't think about it. So they write their appointments down. They make lists. They get up at the same time every day. They do things in a very structured way. So I think if a couple is working together and the ADHD person can take ownership that they need to have some structure, and then the partner can actually help, but not in a nagging way.
Right.
Okay. In a helpful way. We call that nudging, not nagging. Right. So helping the ADHD partner come up with a structure, and then being able to, be accountable, and the partner can help them be accountable for that. Google Calendar, sharing Google Calendars can be great. Using the Note app, sending a grocery list. There's wonderful, wonderful apps that people can use. Don't forget the Milk is one that a lot of clients use. So there's tons and tons of things that ADHD people can do to create better habits and structures for themselves.
They still have to remember to look at their phone if they have the app.
They do. Most ADHD people don't have trouble looking at their phone because they're looking for stimulation all the time.
This couple, was a little bit less techie. Right? They sat down at the kitchen table and they made a list of the week's response, what had to happen.
Yes. So whiteboards are great. Big calendars. There's I have a couple that I'm working with that got this calendar. It's called the Big Ass Calendar. That's about this big, and they put it up on their wall, and they planned out their whole year.
Oh, very interesting.
So it's a cool calendar. The husband of the Spanx founder developed this calendar.
I read his book.
You did?
Yeah, didn't he? He wrote a book.
I don't know, but he developed the Big Ass Calendar. So the Big Ass Calendar, something like that. Visual is usually very, very helpful for people that have ADHD.
Okay.
So seeing a calendar, seeing a whiteboard, seeing a list.
What about celebrating the successes? We have a check. We have these are the things we have to do this week, and at the end of the week, did it.
Yeah, right? That's big.
Yeah, it's not like now we got to plan next week. Shouldn't there be some sort of a reward, but some sort of
Absolutely. We all need rewards, and ADHD people definitely need rewards. And it's important to give yourself rewards and also your partner rewards, especially if they have ADHD.
Okay. All right. Well,
and I do say that if you're, seek a therapist, find someone that has experience with ADHD. ADHD coaching is a thing. I've been doing ADHD coaching for 20 years now with clients.
Impossible.
Yeah, I know. I know. So there's lots of resources. There is CHAD, which is Children and Adults Support Group for ADD people. There's lots of great resources. So don't keep quiet about it. Talk about it and get it out on the table.
Okay. Well, I certainly feel a lot more educated than I was 20 minutes or half an hour ago.
I'm so glad.
And you are, by the way, the shiniest thing in the room. So that's it for us tonight, folks. This is
Conversations for Couples,
the podcast. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, at The Bullits, at THEBULITTS, at The Bullits. Our website, www.thebullits, THEBULITTS. Like and follow this podcast if you like it. We hope that you do, and we will see you next time. Have a great night. Julie Bulitt is a professionally licensed clinical social worker and family therapist. David Bulitt is a divorce and family lawyer. Julie is not your therapist, and David is not your lawyer. This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only.